Is it fair to compare the rise of the new far right to the Nazis?
The first and really most important thing to say is I think the 1930s are always going to be with Europe in some way, shape, or form, and it's absolutely right to try to think through contemporary political events with that lens. And the Hitler comparison is in some ways always going to be at least admissible as evidence in intellectual debate, because here's the Great Depression, here's the breakdown of democracy in a country in which was at the height of civilization, and it came through electoral means, and see what happened, right? So it's the underestimation, right? And to some extent there has been underestimation, at least in my view, and this was a long time ago in the 80s or 90s, of far-right political parties. A lot thought that if we just, take a few of their issues and maybe we give them cabinet positions in our government that will tame them, that will go away, or that people will see, in fact, how incompetent they are as parties. And that wasn't an unreasonable strategy to take for a lot of reasons, because these parties really were poorly organized and had a lot of incompetent leaders. But there was this effort, their underestimation, I think, in the 80s or 90s, and you're not getting a Hitler. That's the good news, I suppose. What you are getting, though, I think, is a set of parties that are asking big and important questions about Europe. I mean, the issues that the radical right cares about are immigration. What is Europe going to look like? How many immigrants and at what rate? What is the European Union going to look like? What is our relationship going to be with the international economic environment? And how is there something called a European culture? And is it compatible with Islam and other cultures? These are big, important questions, right? So the radical right matters because it addresses them. It gives fundamentally, in my view, wrong answers, but in a way that I wouldn't say dangerous, all right, but worth thinking through that analogy more.
Well, I think that, so on the one hand, they're not new Hitlers. Leaving aside Golden Dawn, and perhaps some people in some smaller parties, overall there's a fundamental difference between the contemporary far right and the Nazis of the 1930s, and that's in the acceptance of the democratic system, and that's by much in the acceptance that you don't kill the people you don't like to have in your country. And I mean, small gain perhaps, but pretty profound, I would think as well. But more importantly is that democracy was incredibly weak in the 1930s, and particularly in Weimar Germany. The biggest groups voted for Nazis who didn't believe in democracy, communists who didn't believe in democracy, and Catholics who didn't believe in democracy. By and large, no one believed in democracy at that point in time. Now, despite incredible shake and to the trust, for example, the European Union, trust in democracy as the best system is unshaken. And the vast majority of Europeans still believe very strongly that democracy is the best system. There's Hungary is doing pretty bad, and Greece is doing pretty bad, and Russia is doing pretty bad. But the vast majority of the 28 EU countries have 80% or higher that think that democracy is the best system. And that is a fundamental difference with the 1930s, when it was a minority of the population in many countries.
I would probably add that I think there is both a danger in underestimating, but also there is a danger in overestimating, right, the threat here. And I would agree here both with David and Cas that I think here, still we have most of these parties kind of respecting the democratic system. They are promoting illiberal politics, but through the democratic political system. At the same time, I think where it can be misleading to throw around like the neo-fascist label too easily is it leads to kind of dismissing the phenomenon. Whereas I think, a lot of these parties actually raise very important issues about social tensions, ethnic tensions, economic tensions. The problem is in the answers, right? The problem is in the answers that they provide, right? But I think if we just dismiss them as neo-fascist, we kind of explain away the problem that I think need to be addressed.